Welcome back. We're here with Terry Harper. Terry is a former player for the Atlanta Braves. He was the first African American player drafted from Douglas County in 1973. He grew up in Douglas County and he played with the historic Douglasville Pros baseball team, the subject of what we're going to be talking about. And that's why he's here today to talk about his early days with the Pros before he became famous. Thanks for joining us, Terry.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Now tell me about your days with the Pros, and you were a teenager, or how old were you?
Actually, when I first started, I was around that 12, 13 range, and I was mostly the bat boy. I just used to run around, and if the guys needed something to drink, soda pop or whatever, I was kind of the kid that they would, hey, Terry, come here, and send me on errands. And that's kind of how I got started.
Did you ever play, or did you learn anything?
Well, I ended up eventually playing. I think my first year I played, I was 16, and I was pitching, and I pitched that game, and I was so excited because you can imagine a kid getting a chance to play with guys he grew up watching them play and admiring them over the years, and all of a sudden I was in the game, and I remember I was so pumped that I was just throwing the ball all over the place, and I remember hitting someone.
Well, apparently you improved because you did pitch for the Atlanta Braves, didn't you, at one time?
Yes, I was a good pitcher. I was known for more for my pitching than I was for my hitting and playing in the field. But like I said, being a young kid, just the excitement and controlling those emotions was real difficult at the time.
Did they let you pitch anymore?
No, they didn't. Yeah.
They should have given you another chance, Terry.
Well, the pro team started coming around at that time. I was lucky enough to get drafted by the Braves, and then I went into the Braves minor league system, and so that kind of curtailed some of the.
Well, that was a better opportunity, I would think. But getting back to the Pros and the Douglasville Tigers, was there really a fierce rivalry between those two teams?
Yes, it was, because at that time Sunday everyone was after church. Everyone go out to the ballparks, and really, nowadays they would say standing room only. I mean, you could hardly get into the park, and at that time the teams and the people that watched the game, they would do a lot of talking and for bragging rights, and so it was really exciting to be a part of that, because and then the Pros, they had won for years. They were the team to beat. They were the Yankees of the league, and so it was fun being around those guys. You associate the Pros with winning.
All right. Well, according to Benny Henry, who founded the Tigers,
right?
Well, he purports that his team was the winningest team. So we'll see. We're going to be talking to those guys a little bit later on. So we'll just see how they are talking today about that time in history. I understand from your sister, who is Judge Barbara Caldwell, and whose late husband was a member of the Pros, that she postponed her wedding to go to a game, a Douglasville Pros team, and that's one of the more profound stories I've heard about how how people just traveled around and followed you guys and supported you, and after church they would all get together,
everybody,
and they would travel everywhere. You guys played all over Georgia. Name some of the places where you all went.
Barnesville, Coast Hateville, some of the small towns, just all over the South Georgia, Thomasville, Macon, Sonoya,
Carrollton.
Carrollton, and some of the places was, I was so young, they wouldn't even let me go.
Oh,
So
no.
that's how far back the Pros go. But the even though the Tiger was a really good team, the perception was the Pros. The Pros were the team to beat, and everyone, if the peoples were at the ballparks, I would say 70 to 80% of the people were Pros fans. In my opinion, I guess I was kind of one-sided, but that's kind of how we felt.
Now, during that time, back in 1958, when Thurman and Zachery founded the team, the players were in high school.
Right.
They were not adult men. Then they later on became members of the amateur professional baseball league, if I'm not mistaken, Josh Gibson League.
Okay.
And Thurman gave it up 10 years later, and then Jesse Davis Sr. took it over. Now, when you were with the pros, who was the manager?
Jesse Davis Sr. was the manager at that time. Now, when I was now I was around when Thurman was, but I was like a little small because I was 3 years old when they got started. So, but from as far back as I can remember, the pros were associated with winning.
Okay, now Terry, when you were old enough to travel, how did you all travel, especially if you had to go long distances?
It mostly carpool. It was like a big picnic. Everybody would load the car with food and drinks, and for some of the other people, they would put something a little stronger. So they at those ballparks, it was a lot of partying and just a whole bunch. It was kind of festive. Everyone. It was just a festive atmosphere, and people just having fun.
Well, when you ended your time with the pros, were they saddened that you had to go, or were they happy that you were drafted by a professional baseball team that was paying you some money?
Everyone was excited for me because, there were several guys on the team probably had the ability to play pro ball. I was one of the lucky ones that got the opportunity. But there were several guys that were good enough. But everyone was happy for me. They was pulling for me. Everyone congratulated me. I still like to them. I was still the little bat boy, little guy running around fetching stuff. But yeah, everyone's in my corner pulling for me.
Well, it sounds like those were some very, very good and exciting days, and hopefully we can expose the Douglasville pros and the Tigers to the community so they can understand that we had some baseball history going on back then.
Yeah, it was quite an atmosphere, and in the black community, like I said, it was just so. I guess the people, everybody go to church, and then the atmosphere at the ballpark, it was just something for people to see. No matter what color you are, it would have been fun to be around.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Terry. I really appreciate your taking the time out of your busy schedule to share this information with us.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, we'll have more on the Douglasville pros and that fierce rivalry between the pros and the Douglasville Tigers. Welcome back. I'm here with Benny Henry, founder of the Winston Tigers, later the Winston Colts, Jesse Davis Jr., one of the players for the Douglasville Pros, and the son of Jesse Davis, for whom our park is named, and Thurman Zachery, founder of the Douglasville Pros, and he founded that team in 1958. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Let's begin with a little background information on the Josh Gibson League, for which both teams played. And I guess I should ask you, Benny, since you seem to know more about the team and the league and how it was organized.
Yes. We organized that team, I think it was in 1956. We got together and organized the team and went around through the metro area looking for ball teams to join this league, and we found about 8 teams. And that's where we got started.
When did the when did the pros join the league? Because I know you all were members of Josh Gibson League first.
Mr. Zachery can tell you more about when they joined the league.
Yeah, we joined in 1958. We organized our baseball club in 1958. And we organized, they were a little older than we were. And so we were a little younger, so they were kind of, about, should we join them? Because they were about 5, 6 years older than we were. And we thought we can play along with them. So we got together and we determined that we were going to join the league. And so we did, and we proceeded after that.
Now, at first, they didn't want y'all to join because
Nope.
they didn't think you all were
We were too
good
young.
enough to play
There you
against
go,
them.
there you
Okay,
go.
but of course, you proved them different.
Right.
Okay.
10 years later.
It took them 10 years. Okay. Just tell me about some of the experiences while you all were playing, some of your travels around, and Jesse, some of the experiences that you recall.
Well, I was very young then, of course, when they got started. And Thurman here is really the one that got me started before my daddy took over the team. And I used to go around with Thurman them because I remember riding on the back of the truck all the way to Rome and stuff like that. And when my daddy took over the team, then that's when I became an everyday player. And some of the experience I more or less experienced is that we played double hitters every Sunday, and it was hot. One of the ones that I most remember was a double hitter we played in Carrollton, Georgia. It was a hot day, and usually everywhere we played, now this was during segregation, so the ball field would be over near the projects, and there would always be a liquor house, a bootleg house somewhere around the ball field. Well, this day in Carrollton, Georgia, we was playing, and it was a hot day. We had a double hitter. We won the first game pretty good. But by the time that second game and that heat and that drinking and all that those fans be doing, it gets pretty rowdy. We had a guy came up off the hill where the fans were in our dugout, grabbed one of our bats, went back up on the hill working on somebody. And so we had to get somebody out of the team to go back up there to retrieve the bat. We had the fields didn't have any lights. So the fix were in, and the game was tied, and it was getting dark, and the umpires never would call the game because it would have ended in a tie. Finally, when they hit a ball in the outfield and our players couldn't see it, and their guy just circled the bases, once they got home, the umpire said, "Ball game, over."
That didn't seem fair.
No, it didn't. But what I remember most about that is that I saw one of the greatest sportsmanship things I ever seen. I remember the manager of the Carrollton team, which was named Long. He came over and told my daddy, which was our manager, he said, "Look, my boys over there talking big talk, and they going to a little juke joint up the street here. Y'all got to go by." He said, "Get your boys together, and I have my truck down here on this next street, and y'all meet me." And he led us out of the back way.
Well, there were quite a few funny stories you told me about your memory of those experiences.
That was one of the good ones.
And one of the highlights of one of the stories involved the penitentiary. That was after desegregation, right?
Yes. We played the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, had a team in our league. Mm-hmm. Of course, they couldn't come out, all the teams that go in there to play. And we really enjoyed going in there to play because it made us feel like we was playing in the big leagues. Beautiful manicured fields, umpires on every base in white shirts, and plus they even had announcers that announce your name when you come to bat and tell what you did the last time and all that.
And throwing a new ball every time you foul one off.
Throwing a new ball every time you foul one off, and then they had a bat boy that it would be wiping our bats down and all that stuff. But the bat boy in the dugout that they assign us, he also be hustling for the prisoners. He'll say, "Hey man, I'll give you some balls. This guy over here wants your sunglasses." Or this guy over here like those sneakers you got, I'll give you a new mitt.
Well, that was manageable, right?
Right, that was manageable. But, we always paid great ball in there, and they gave us great games.
Well, there are so many stories that I know you could share, but I thank you for sharing those. But I wanted to ask you all about something that seems to be at the root of some confusion as to who was the better team, the Winston Colts Tigers or the Winston Pros. Now, I interviewed you each, Benny and Thurman, on different occasions. And Thurman, I believe my quote from you is that you all played 50 games and you only lost 3, and that y'all were the best team ever. Then I interviewed you, Benny, and you said that the pros came into the league and they were a bunch of young boys and we whipped them.
Yeah, when they first came into the league.
When they first came into the league.
We whooped them for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Then we got old. and they were young. You know how it is when an old man trying to jump on a young man, he go get whipped.
Okay. Well, I want y'all to talk about that famous game at the Larry Bell Park in Marietta.
Well, we had a game going on up at Larry Bell Park one Saturday night. We jumped out and scored 19 runs in 8 innings.
Wow.
And the pros, we were leading the pros, I think, about 19 to 2 or 3.
18 to 3.
18 to 3.
Right.
And all at once, our team blew up.
Disaster
Our
happening.
team blew up, and they come by and passed us. I think y'all beat us about 23,
24 to 8.
24 to 8.
18.
And you remember after all these
yeah,
years,
oh, yeah.
okay, so they came up from 2 in the last inning to beat y'all
To beat us.
by 21 points in the last inning. What was the contributing factor to that? What was the problem? What happened?
I think we got tired.
We just run them. They get. When you get old, you can't go. So
But they weren't that
we just
much
had
older
a
than you
cloud of
guys.
dust, and
Well,
and I told them, I never forget that though, because one thing that was so outstanding about that game was that it was a lot of joning going on, and it was whipping us pretty
Yeah,
bad.
everybody buddy.
And we hit. I think we started off that inning with we hit 5 consecutive triples in a row. We started the inning out, and we got it going, and we was rolling. And every time they throw the ball, it was just a cloud of dust, and somebody else was stealing home or whatever base they was going to, and they were just throwing the ball around. And they just got upset.
I think what it was, we had such big lead, and we took our best ball players out of the game.
No, y'all was still in the
We
game.
took
No,
our
you
best ball
didn't.
players out of the game, and brought these younger boys in there, and they come in there and they blew up.
No, y'all was still in the game.
I
Y'all
pulled
was
a
still-
drunk man off the bench. I pulled on third baseman when he went in the game that night. I pulled him off the bench to coming back with the bases loaded, and he hit one across 3 ballparks up there in Marietta, at Larry Bell Park. You remember that, don't you, Mr. Zachery?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember all
He
that.
was drunk, and I was on first base when he hit the home run, and the ball went so far. I had to wait till he get to the base. He was drunk, and let him test the base here. I let him follow me on down to second. I touched second, and he come on behind me, and I told him, I said, test this base here all the way around. And we were whipping him, so I put a drunk man out there to bat.
Yeah, they were drunk when we got through with them. All y'all was drunk.
Yeah,
we got through with y'all.
It sure was after the game.
well, I went to the Atlanta Daily World and I found some newspaper articles about you guys. And this one says that the Winston Pros, the North Georgia District Champions, are seeded number 3 in the Georgia State Baseball Tournament. And this was in July of 1962. And this one says that the Winston Tigers or Colts wins the Josh Gibson North Georgia Tournament. This was also in 1962. So it seems that both of you all were playing pretty well in 1962 in the league, and that you did dominate the league for a long time.
We lost one game that year. 1962. We lost one baseball game in 1962.
I found
and that
numerous.
was the first game of the season. You remember me telling you this once before.
Well, I found numerous accounts of you all playing during that year and the year before and the year after, but I just wanted to reference these in all fairness that both of you all were really doing pretty well during at least that one year. Now, wasn't there some, didn't you all integrate the teams with some white players?
Yes, my team, we first wanted to integrate any kind of team in Douglas County, period. I'll never forget 1962 and 63, Lanier Chumley, he came here, wanted to play baseball with us. He's a white fella, but he was a med from the Army. And he wanted to play baseball because he played baseball all the time. And so he heard about the pros, and I asked him, would he like to join with us? He said, yeah, why not? And so we got him to start playing, and the people, it was still segregated then. They didn't want him to play because they wanted black and white to play together. And so I told him we didn't have no problem about it. He said, well, he from the service, and he's all men treated alike in service. So you in service, you got to take care of the other man back. Whatever you don't see it, you have to look out for the other man. So he believed in was playing together. So the police came over the park one day, gonna stop us from playing together. He thought he couldn't play with them, and he said, "Man, look, I fight for you just like I fight for the black stuff. When we was in surgery, we said, ain't no segregated in there. Why does it got to be segregated out here?" So he tried to explain to him why did he want to play, and he said, "Well, we're gonna go back to City Hall. We'll talk about that next week but in the meantime, so we rather you not playing." He said, "Man, I don't see no why we couldn't play." And so he continued to play, but they left alone. I know, remember one experience we had down at City Park, Hunter Park down there. The whites were playing down there, and we had a baseball meeting that night, and we left the meeting. We knew they were playing down there, so I took the guys, so let's go back and see the white boys play. So we went down there to the park. And here come the police again. Tell we can't come to the park because you're black. Go to your own park. I said, no, we want to watch the guys play. Because Bill Fight, he was managing the team here in Douglasville, and you always have a good team. But so we eventually got together and we started playing each other. Red William and his brother and Paul them. And so we finally got together and played them. And when we played them, we beat them that first time. We beat them 8-6 that first game. And then later on, about 3 weeks later, we played them again. They beat us. I think they scored about 7-5 or something like that. So we were at tit for tat. And one thing about our team, we just join each other about we beat y'all, y'all beat us. We just call a lot of kidding going on. And so that's what started us playing each other. And after they see Lanier Chumley, he wasn't going to quit playing us. So he continued to play us, and he played till he finally left Douglasville.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Bill Fight because he's the husband of the late Woody Fight,
right.
For the Senior Citizens Center is named for Woody. But Bill, I understand, was a very good friend to your father, Jesse Davis, and he was quite instrumental in having the park named for your father because of all the work he had done in the community with the baseball team. And Phil Williams, who coached the Douglas County Tigers for many, many years, also played on that baseball team against you guys. Yes. So that's some interesting history there. Benny, talk a little bit about your brief stint in the Negro League.
Well, in 1948, the first season, the first of the season, the Birmingham Black Bears, they was looking at a pitcher that I had that was pitching for us when I played with the old Carrollton Honey Drippers on a little traveling team. And they come out there, they wanted this pitcher. And I was a catcher. I could catch them if they hit out young and bounce over your head, I could still catch them. They can tell you. I would get it. I was a good defensive catcher. And the pitchers we had down there, the catcher we had down at Carrollton, he couldn't get him out of the dirt. He was getting kind of old. He couldn't catch him. So every time this guy pitched, and they were called Sims. Every time he pitched, he could throw so hard, he throw 100 miles an hour. And every time he throw low all the time. And the ball get in the dirt, and the catcher would let him get away from him. So and I told him I could catch him. And so the manager let me catch him, and I was digging them all out of the dirt. So when the Birmingham Black Bears, they came up, they want him to come and pitch for them. This is in 1948. And he said, I will go if you let me bring my catcher with me. And they say, we don't need no catcher. And Carl said, well, he can play some shortstop too. So you can let him catch me, and you can have him around for second string shortstop. And so they took me on out there, paid me $20 a week.
Big money.
And I got out there. They had said I never saw such good ball players in my life.
And you met Willie May.
They had George Crow. Used to play with the Cincinnati Reds. He was playing third base. I mean, playing first base. And that Willie Mays playing in center field. I didn't know nothing about no Willie Mays back in them days. Only thing I know, Will played Willie Mays, against Willie Mays out here at the mill out here at Douglasville when he played with the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Me and him was the same age. You know, so I stayed out there with Birmingham about 2 months. I got in about 15 games and broke my foot down here, and I come home. They were wanting to take me in. I didn't break it. I sprung it real bad, and they wanted to break it and set it back where I wouldn't have no limp when I get older. So when I was young, 16 years old, I said, I ain't gonna let y'all break my feet. Y'all take me back home to my daddy. So they loaded me up and they brought me back home, and I come back home, my foot got well, and we organized a little baseball team down at Winston, and that's where I've been ever since.
Well, I think that's great. You had an opportunity to play with the Old Negro League. In fact, someone from the Old Negro League, an historian there, told me that the leagues were the end of the Negro League era, all around the country.
It was the end of it, yes.
Now, the Indianapolis Clowns, you all played exhibition.
I played the Indianapolis against the Indianapolis.
You played with them or against?
I played against.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I kind of played against them at the end of their era, too. And I've got stories on them in my museum, complete with pictures and type of stuff like that. And you know, the Clowns, they go way back. They had Goose Tatum that used to play at Globetrotters. He played with the Clowns. Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight, he started with the Clowns. So a lot of people think of the Clowns as Hank Aaron era, but the Clowns go way back. And see, the Clowns were the Globetrotters of baseball. They had guys that sit in a rocking chair and catch. I saw a guy, his name was Birmingham Sam, throw a guy out at first base from third base behind his back. And they also had a one-arm first baseman and a midget that played second. And like Benny said, you never saw such good ball players
in your life.
In your life with these disabilities and stuff. And they were traveling. And when they comes to these little small towns or big cities, they'll just gather up a local team to play against them.
That's the way they played them, yeah.
That's the way they played them.
But they was a part of the Old Negro League.
Right.
You know, Zachery played, he played with Indianapolis Clowns too.
And of course, Hank Aaron
played
with the Clowns, and his contract was sold to the Braves. That's how he ended up in Atlanta.
He was playing with the Clowns when I was with Birmingham.
Well, that's interesting. Speaking of your museum, it's a cowboy museum.
Yes.
And it's located in where?
It's located in Southwest Atlanta. It is I opened up a cowboy museum to show the history of the black cowboys of the West. This is the only museum in the South that shows the history of the black cowboys of the West. And since I was a part of baseball and all that, I also included the Negro Leagues, a lot of history on that too. And I shows it in pictures, memorabilia, and artifacts and other type of things too. And also I'm writing a book on a couple of local cowboys out of Douglas County, Willie Flip Cook and Silas Blue Reed. There's a history behind them, whatnot, that needs to be told. And of course everybody knew Flip, but they didn't know that Flip was the only and first black judge of the National Walking Horse Championships in Shelbyville, Tennessee. This is a rich man thing. Flip is the only black man to ever be a judge there. And when Flip passed, he was a millionaire himself, in which the man that he worked for was Johnson, that owned the Ritz-Carlton downtown and over 400 Waffle Houses. Flip trained champions for him. He took Flip money and invested it for him and made Flip very wealthy too.
Certainly sounds like an interesting story.
It's an interesting story, and I'm going to write this story.
Sounds like you've been doing a lot of research on that.
Yes, I have.
So this explains your attire and what you have on, and that
Yes.
decorated jacket and your cowboy hat and your cowboy boots.
Yes.
Okay, now the museum is where? In what county?
It's in Fulton County. It's located on Welcome All Road, which is about 10 miles from the Hartsfield Airport.
What's the address?
4225 Welcome All Road, College Park, Georgia.
And it's called
The Black Cowboy Western Museum South. South to distinguish it that it is in the South. Now, they do have Black Cowboy Western Museums out west. The biggest one is in Denver, Colorado, but this is the only one in the South that shows the true history of the Black Cowboys of the West.
Well, thank you very much for that. And thank you all for sharing your experiences and your stories with us today. We really appreciate having you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank you for watching this segment and this very special edition of On the Agenda. And coming up next, Bill Osborne with his wrap-up of this special edition.